Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Staci. So lately I've been thinking about old age. I'm not quite sure why. I really have no basis of exactly where those thoughts first came into my head and what I was thinking of to get them there. But it's just been sort of things I'd like to be able to do when I'm a senior, beyond senior discount, although senior discount would be so nice right now. But beyond senior discount and actually being able to afford to live and or retire when I become a senior, because I've been told since I was a child that Social Security will basically not be there by the time I'm of that age. Lucky me. I want to still have life. And that's a sort of dumb moment, but not just like, being alive physically, biologically in the most minimal sense, but living life, fully living and not feeling like I can't do anything on my own, not having to have a caretaker or anything like that. And so two things that always really sort of freak me out about things that I might not be able to get there with are cancer and Alzheimer's. They're just sort of the two that it's like, you A, wouldn't allow me to even get to old age, and or B, even if I got to old age, then my old age wouldn't be that great. Gosh, that sucks. Why do we have to get bad in old age? Who wrote these biology rules? I want to talk to you. But so anyways, because I was thinking about that, I happened upon this article about things you can do to prevent cancer. And I have many friends who are just like, everything gives you cancer, so you can't freak out about it. To which, it's a little hard to freak out about things. If it seems like everything gives you cancer, it's kind of like, there's no point in freaking out. You'd be freaking out all the time. But on the other hand, I at least want to take as many preventative measures as I can and not be like, I totally know I should do this. And everything gives you cancer, so just screw it anyways. No, I don't want to do that. So I saw this article, and while cancer is still, especially certain cancers are still, we don't quite know enough about them in science. We still definitely need a lot of research to find things out. There are some things that doctors just sort of in general recommend. So first thing is get the HPV vaccine, which I'm shocked that this was the first thing on this list, because I don't know that the HPV vaccine existed before I was in high school, or if it did exist, it wasn't required until I was in high school. Because I remember when it came out and you had to get the HPV and there were 3 shots, and it was supposed to be, you were supposed to start it at, I want to say 12, but I'm not actually sure what age it was, but it was an age I was a few years older than. So I had to sort of go back and get them all, even though I thought I was done with all my shots. Seriously. More shots. You're just always going to give me more shots. Fine. So the HPV vaccine, usually it doesn't protect against all types of HPV, because there are definitely a number of them. But it does offer protection against the types of HPV that are most likely to cause cervical cancer. Not all the types that cause cervical cancer, but the ones that are most likely to cause cervical cancer. So it's a sort of Not 100%, but most definitely better than nothing. And it would be sort of foolish just to not. And then the next tip they give is wear sunscreen, which I'm sure you've probably heard a gazillion times. And along with the this of all of them, I think, is the one where I'm most along with my friends of, yeah, but maybe is this possibly the cure is more harm than good? Because especially with a lot of modern sunscreens using different chemicals and using like nano molecules, or I can't even remember what they're called, so that they're like clear and the ones you can spray and all that, they're still very new. We still don't know, if those get like absorbed through the skin because the molecules are smaller, or if you breathe them in, what happens? We don't have long enough research on whether or not those chemicals are long-term going to be bad for us. But we do know that UV exposure is the leading cause of skin cancer, and that research has shown that sunscreen can reduce the incidence of skin cancer and protect against melanoma, which is the deadliest form of skin cancer. And even though I'm still questionable about some things in sunscreen, but I unfortunately can't use the mineral ones with zinc just because I've never been able to find one that just does not make me look like a ghost. So I do have to rely on the newer chemical ones. And so I sort of have to take that chance. And it's sort of a measuring of bets here. Because on the one hand, there are these things that may or may not cause cancer. We don't know yet. But on the other hand, there's skin cancer and the sun, which we do know causes skin cancer. So it's like I could go against the thing I know for sure could definitely happen, or I could be sort of scared of the thing that may or may not. And then what if it's actually perfectly fine and 40 years down the road I've got skin cancer because I didn't want to wear sunscreen? It's just like, yeah, I don't know that was the smartest choice to make. So at this time, it's sort of taking the lesser of two evil bets. I'm not quite sure how to describe that. Wear sunscreen. That's the lesson there. But not just any sunscreen. And in fact, I love that it's sunscreen, because when I was younger, you could call it sunblock. And then I believe the FDA made them change that because you can't actually block out the sun. You're literally just sort of screening, and it doesn't last forever. So your sunscreen should have an SPF of 30 or higher and protect against both UVA and UVB rays. UVA rays are the ones that tend to cause aging. UVB rays are the ones that tend to cause burning. I don't think that's what the A and B stand for, but that's how I tend to remember them. But a sunscreen that protects against both rays is usually called broad spectrum, so you should look for that label on the sunscreen. And you shouldn't rely, for people who wear makeup or moisturizers with sunscreen, you shouldn't rely on that alone, because the amount of sunscreen in those and the amount that by putting those on regularly, particularly if it's like sunscreen in a powder foundation or something, is not generally enough to actually protect you adequately. You should actually be applying about an ounce, which is about a shot glass worth of sunscreen every 2 hours. Now that ounce thing is shot glass is the one that generally comes up to sort of help you visualize it. But if you are a larger person, you will of course need more. I won't even say if you're a smaller person, you need less. Just start as an ounce at minimum sounds like a good idea. But every 2 hours, I think, is definitely hard for some people, because unless you're, at the gym, not at the gym, excuse me, at the beach, and you have it like in a gym bag or your beach bag or whatever have you. And so it's there and you remember to apply it every 2 hours. I don't generally reapply sunscreen every 2 hours when I'm like at work, because that's not something I would think of. So that part probably would involve, especially for me, some changes in my lifestyle, and maybe just constantly carrying around a little small tube of sunscreen or something, and then trying to figure out how to remember to apply that every 2 hours. That would definitely be a hard part. But that is the recommendation. Just of all things, sunscreen is probably not one you want to skip at all. You do, however, probably want to skip smoking. And I think I was just completely scared away from smoking as a child. I remember those anti-smoking commercials with the woman with the hole in her throat. And at my elementary school, there was actually a bus that came around that had like pictures of smokers along and all those sorts of things. I was just like, nope, not ever, not going to happen. And so I never smoked anything, but smoking, health officials just, I'd say probably 99% are in agreement. There's probably not, I can see why people would have started smoking, particularly before we knew all these health things as the general public, but there's not really any benefit to smoking, and the health problems have been stated numerous times, so I won't go into them all, but just don't smoke. That is a recommendation. If you don't want cancer, don't smoke anything. So we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. Today we're talking about things to do to prevent cancer and Alzheimer's, and we're still on cancer prevention tips. So another one is to maintain a healthy body weight, and this is actually just probably it should be number one for pretty much every health problem. It's just maintain a healthy body weight. The American Cancer Society doesn't directly attribute any one food to causing cancer, not even sugar, even though there's been all that hubbub about whether or not sugar causes cancer. And there hasn't been a direct link between body weight and cancer, but obesity does seem to be one of many factors that can increase cancer risk. They think possibly maybe because obesity can lead to inflammation in the body, which can lead to other events that can eventually cause cancer. But they also say sort of yo-yo dieting, regularly gaining and losing weight may also increase your cancer risk. Likewise, along with the no smoking thing, I'm not going to say you shouldn't ever, but should drink less alcohol. There's, the general recommendation of 1 for women and 2 for men. According to the American Society of Clinical Oncology, alcohol is an established risk factor for certain malignancies. It's also a group 1 carcinogen, according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, meaning there's a clear causal relationship between it and cancer. So unlike the weight thing, we do know alcohol can cause cancer. Not all, and depending on how much you drink, but there is a clear causal relationship. We're not sure how exactly, but we do know that cause is there. And finally, you should look at your family genetic history. And if there's something that sort of runs in your family, like breast cancer or heart disease or whatever, something that multiple members of your family have had, and I know most, if not all, doctors' offices, especially when you first become a patient, will sort of ask of that, does anyone in your family have all these different things? If someone in your family does have that, you may want to ask your doctor to be screened for those even earlier than the sort of normal screening practice. So, for example, if breast cancer runs in your family, I believe the age when you start getting a mammogram is 55 or 50. If breast cancer runs in your family, you may want to ask for more breast cancer screening prior to that, even a mammogram before that minimum age, just to be aware, because a lot of things, especially with cancer, if you catch it earlier, you've got a better chance of being able to get rid of it with treatment than if it's caught later. So now moving on to Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's, I believe, it's Alzheimer's dementia in a lot of this research. I'm not sure if Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, but they sort of, a lot of these things go for both of them. So one of the recommendations is regular exercise. According to the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, regular physical exercise can reduce your risk of developing Alzheimer's by up to 50%. and can also slow further deterioration in those who have already started to develop cognitive problems. Exercise protects against Alzheimer's by stimulating the brain's ability to maintain old connections as well as make new ones. You should aim for about at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity every week with a combination of cardio and strength training. But they also recommend that you should include balance and coordination exercises because head injuries from falls are an increasing risk as you age, which in turn increase your risk for Alzheimer's and dementia. Another thing, and it doesn't normally seem to come up for health things, but it actually plays a big part, is social engagement. To not be a loner, to get out and, engage with people. Human beings are social creatures, and staying socially engaged may protect against Alzheimer's disease and dementia in later life. Some ways you can sort of maintain social engagement without, having to go out and be the life of the party. You can volunteer. You can join a club or a social group, visit your local community center or a senior center if you have one near you, take group classes, and that can be both like classes at the gym, but also like classes at a community college. And actually classes at a community college would probably help quite a bit for something we'll talk about a little later. You can also reach out over the phone, reach out through email, connect to others via social networks. So it doesn't have to be in physical social engagement, just so long as you are getting, that sort of feedback and talking with people, even if it's just digitally. Get to know your neighbors, make a weekly date with friends, go out to the movies, the park, museums, and other public places and talk to people. Again, like the one before for cancer, eat a healthy diet. In Alzheimer's disease, inflammation and insulin resistance injure neurons and inhibit communication between brain cells. So inflammation is just like a really terrible thing on many fronts here. Alzheimer's is actually somewhat described as diabetes of the brain, which I did not know. And a growing body of research suggests a strong link between metabolic disorders and the signal processing systems. So they suggest cutting down on sugar, eating a traditional diet like the Mediterranean diet. Several epidemiological studies show that eating a Mediterranean diet dramatically reduces the risk of cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease. Avoid trans fat, but get plenty of omega-3 fats. So trans fat can cause inflammation and produce free radicals, both of which are hard on the brain. But evidence suggests that the DHA found in omega-3 fats may help prevent Alzheimer's disease and dementia by reducing beta amyloid plaques. Along with that, stock up on fruits and vegetables, eat across the color spectrum, but also enjoy daily cups of tea, which is one of those things that I'm still trying to make a habit. But along with like soup, tea in my head is just sort of only when I'm sick thing. So eating it or drinking it when I'm not sick there's some sort of mental, emotional block there. It's just hard for me. Also, as we're now coming into summer, it's really hot on the day I'm recording this, and it's still only May when I'm recording it. As we're now coming into summer, I'm just like, I don't want a hot thing whatsoever. And I'm not the best at making iced tea. I don't like black tea. I'd have to do it with green, and I still want to put lots of sugar in it. So I need to work on my tea drinking also. But regular consumption of green tea may enhance memory and mental alertness and slow brain aging. White and oolong teas are also particularly brain healthy. They say drinking 2 to 4 cups daily has proven benefits. And though it's not as powerful as tea, coffee can also confer brain benefits. But I struggled to just get like a cup of tea a week. So 2 to 4 cups daily. That will be an uphill climb for me. They also suggest, and this is where the earlier thing about community classes comes in, mental stimulation. So those who continue learning new things throughout life and challenging their brains are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease and dementia. In the groundbreaking NIH active study, older adults who received as few as 10 sessions of mental training not only improve their cognitive function and daily activities in the months after the training, but continue to show long-lasting improvements 10 years later. So some ways you can stimulate your brain would be to learn something new, study a foreign language, practice a musical instrument, read the newspaper, a good book, take up a new hobby. Again, community college classes can really help with this. Whatever it is, the greater the novelty and challenge, the greater the benefit. They also suggest practice memorization, and you can help yourself do this by creating rhymes and patterns to strengthen your memory connections, sort of mnemonic devices. Enjoy strategy games, puzzles, and riddles. Brain teasers and strategy games provide a great mental workout and build your capacity to form and retain cognitive associations. And practice the 5 W's. Keep a who, what, where, when, and why list of your daily experiences. Capturing visual details keeps your neurons firing. Finally, they suggest for mental stimulation to take a new route, or eat with your non-dominant hand, or rearrange your computer file system, to do something sort of new that sort of throws your brain off from its everyday routine. So we're going to take another short break. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. Today we're talking about some prevention tips for preventing cancer and Alzheimer's. And before the break, we were talking about different ways to stimulate your brain. I know my grandmother does crossword puzzles. This came out, years and years ago, that doing crossword puzzles could sort of help you. I don't know that it creates new neural pathways, but it sort of helps you retain the ones you have, because you're challenging your memory of, what was that actor in that thing's name? Or, what is that word for whatever things you remember, but don't necessarily remember off the tip of your hat. That's not the phrase I meant, if I could remember it. But things you can't necessarily remember right away because you don't normally think of them, because how often do you need to know, really random trivia? But it can help you to keep your neural pathways strong. There has been conflicting research about how helpful that is, but it does seem that it's at least somewhat helpful because of the memory thing. I know someone else who, rather than crossword puzzles, regularly watches Jeopardy and plays along for that same sort of thing to see if they can remember these things or know these things. But it does seem even more so the learning something new aspect, or the changing things up aspect, because you're creating new neural pathways, that beyond the creating new ones, it also helps keep the existing ones sort of in shape, like exercise. So either or both, or all of the above, actually. Other tips to help prevent Alzheimer's: get quality sleep. It's common for people with Alzheimer's disease to suffer from insomnia and other sleep problems. But research is now suggesting that disrupted sleep isn't just a symptom of Alzheimer's, but a possible risk factor, which makes it one of those really annoying catch-22s that I hate. So an increasing number of studies have linked poor sleep to higher levels of beta amyloid. Amyloid? I'm going to pronounce it that way. A sticky brain-clogging protein that in turn further interferes with sleep, especially with the deep sleep necessary for memory formation. I didn't know I needed deep sleep for memory formation, but good to know. So other studies emphasize the importance of uninterrupted sleep for flushing out brain toxins. So you evidently need to get good quality sleep, both to form memories, but also to get rid of toxins. My brain is doing a lot while I'm sleeping. Wow. They also suggest managing your stress levels. Easier said than done, I know. Chronic or persistent stress can take a heavy toll on the brain, leading to shrinkage in a key memory area, hampering nerve cell growth, and increasing the risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So, stress, we should probably do a whole episode on stress. Stress is just, feels like forever a non-ending problem with stress, just the never-ending problem with health. But some ways that this article talking about ways to help prevent Alzheimer's suggests to help you manage your stress. Breathe. Quiet your stress responses with deep abdominal breathing. Restorative breathing is powerful, simple, and free. They said that. I didn't say that, but yes, that's also true. They also suggest scheduling daily relaxation activities. So keeping stress under control requires regular effort, so you should make relaxation a priority, and that can be walking in the park, playing with your dog, yoga, soothing bath, just sort of closing your eyes and listening to relaxing music, whatever sort of works for you. Make sure to do that regularly. Don't have that, whenever I have time sort of thing, because you'll find you almost never have time. Other things will come up and they'll somehow seem more important, but you should really make relaxation a priority for your health. They also suggest nourishing inner peace. Regular meditation, again, prayer, reflection, and religious practice may immunize you against the damaging effects of stress. Along with making relaxation a priority, make fun a priority as well. So you should make time for leisure activities that bring you joy. And that can be stargazing, playing the piano, working on your bike, knitting, learning a new language. And actually that would be like 2 birds with 1 stone if you happen to like learning languages, because you're both having fun, but then also making new brain pathways. And I mean fun, because fun, like relaxation, is definitely individual. One person's idea of fun is most definitely not another's. I mean, it can be some others, but it's not necessarily another's. This can be almost anything. And if it happens to be something that's one of the previous suggested tips, that works great. If you happen to like walking, that's great, because it can also help you maintain your body weight, which is an important thing to do. So I'm not suggesting you have to, but if you can find a way to have one of the other tips be a thing that's also a relaxation method or a fun thing for you to do, you're multitasking on your way towards not having Alzheimer's, and that's always good. That's always great. Also, keep your sense of humor, including the ability to laugh at yourself, which can be hard, although I've heard, and I kind of hope it's true, that it gets easier as you get older, because you sort of realize all the things that you freaked out about when you were younger are not actually that important. Like, I was reading something about this, and I knew the person who was writing this was only like in their mid-30s, so they were like, yeah, I know, me saying that things you thought were important aren't important as you get older is a little ridiculous. But he made me think of like prom and how serious. I didn't take prom that serious, but I did want to make sure that I had a dress that nobody else would have. I took that kind of serious. My poor mother had to drive me around so many stores to try and find my prom dress. But just like the idea that, oh, if I don't have this, my life is, it's like, no, it's not. It's really not. And you're going to look back on this in 5-10 years and just be like, why was I freaking out so much? What was that about? So laughing at yourself or laughing at other funny things, the act of laughing helps your body fight stress. So if nothing else, and I do this sometimes when I've had a bad day, if you have a show that you really like, that's really funny and makes you laugh, go home and turn that on, and that can be your sort of veg out thing for half an hour or so. And that can help you relieve your stress. There are other tips they give, but they're pretty much the same as some of the tips we talked about with preventing cancer. So these are things: don't smoke, drink only in moderation, maintain a healthy weight, control blood pressure, and cholesterol levels. So I hope that all those tips have been helpful and that all the listeners will have a long, active, healthy life full of joy and full of living and not suffer from cancer or Alzheimer's. Seriously, my best wishes to all of you. If you're interested, on our next episode, we will actually be having an interview and talking about intermittent fasting, which can be a way some people have found to help maintain that healthy body weight that is important for both cancer and Alzheimer's prevention. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I wish you a good day. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.